My name is Claire Sterling. I'm 29. Last Tuesday at 12:47 p.m., I was standing in the executive break room on the 14th floor of Sterling Innovations when Chloe Thorne slapped me so hard across the face that my vision went white for 3 full seconds. "How dare you drink from my husband's thermos?" she screamed. Her hand was still raised, trembling. The diamond on her left ring finger caught the fluorescent light, a custom design with 3 interlocking bands, sapphires set in platinum. I knew that design. I'd sketched it myself 2 years ago for my 3rd anniversary. Preston had told me the jeweler lost the specs. I touched my cheek. It was burning. My face felt like someone had pressed a hot iron against the bone. There were 4 other people in the break room, 2 engineers, a project manager, and someone from accounting. All of them were staring at the floor, at their phones, at anything but me. "I'm sorry," I said. My voice came out steady even though my hands were shaking. "I didn't know it was his." "You didn't know?" Chloe's voice went higher. She was 26, with that kind of polished beauty that comes from expensive salons and personal trainers. Executive secretary, that's what her business card said. "You're a low-level admin assistant. You don't touch executive property. You don't even belong on this floor." The thermos sat on the counter between us. Stainless steel, navy blue, with PV engraved on the side. I'd given it to Preston for his birthday last year. Filled it with his favorite Ethiopian roast every morning for 8 months before he told me he preferred buying coffee from the lobby cafe. "I'll replace it," I said. "With what money?" Chloe laughed. It wasn't a kind sound. "You make $42,000 a year. This thermos cost more than your monthly rent." She was right about the salary. That's what admin assistants made at Sterling Innovations. But she was wrong about the rent. I owned the Atherton estate outright, or at least I used to. The deed was in my maiden name, Sterling, same as the company, same as my father. "Is there a problem here?" Preston's voice cut through the room. He stood in the doorway, 6'2", in a Tom Ford suit that cost $4,800. I knew because I'd been with him when he bought it. That was 14 months ago, back when he still let me attend his work events. Back when he introduced me as his wife instead of pretending I didn't exist. Chloe turned to him, and her whole demeanor shifted. The fury melted into something soft and wounded. "She drank from your thermos, baby. I told her it was yours, and she got defensive." I didn't correct her. There was no point. Preston's eyes barely touched me before moving back to Chloe. "It's fine," he said. "Just a thermos." "But she needs to learn respect," Chloe said. "She's been here 3 months, and she still doesn't understand hierarchy." Preston nodded. "Claire, my office. Now." I followed him down the hallway. My cheeks still burned. The accounting person had pulled out their phone, probably texting the whole floor already. By 1:15 p.m., everyone would know. The new admin got slapped by the CEO's secretary. The new admin drank from the wrong thermos. The new admin doesn't know her place. His office was corner suite, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. I'd been in this office exactly twice since starting my admin assistant job. Both times, Preston had made sure the door stayed open and kept our conversation under 90 seconds. He closed the door. "What are you doing?" His voice was low, controlled. This was the voice he used in board meetings when someone challenged his quarterly projections. "You're making this difficult." "I was thirsty," I said. "I didn't see a name on it." "You saw Chloe's reaction. You should have apologized and left." I did apologize. Not convincingly. He sat on the edge of his desk, arms crossed. "Look, I know this is hard for you. The divorce papers are filed. The settlement is generous. $850,000, the condo in the city, your car. You'll be fine, but you need to stop showing up here." "I work here," I said. "You don't need to work here. You're making people uncomfortable." "People or Chloe?" His jaw tightened. "Don't do that. Don't make this about her." "You're wearing the cufflinks I gave you," I said. They were platinum, custom made, with his initials. I'd commissioned them from a jeweler in New York for our first anniversary, $3,200. You're wearing my gift while you tell me to stay away from your girlfriend. She's not my girlfriend. She's my executive secretary. She's wearing my ring design. Preston stood up. That's enough. Sign the settlement papers, Claire. Take the money. Move on. And if I don't? Then my lawyers will make sure you get nothing. He walked to the door, opened it. Think about it. You have until Friday at 5 p.m. I left his office, walked past Chloe's desk. She was on the phone, laughing about something. Walked past the conference room where 3 junior developers were setting up for a 2 p.m. meeting. Walked past the portrait of my father in the lobby, Richard Sterling, founder and CEO, 1962 to 2021. Before I go on, if stories about standing up for yourself mean something to you, please hit like and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from right now and what time is it there. Let me take you back 7 years to the night I met Preston Vance. I was 22, fresh out of Stanford, with a degree in computer science and a last name that opened every door in Silicon Valley. My father had just closed Series C funding for Sterling Innovations, $180 million. The company was his 4th startup, his first unicorn. He was 59, healthy, running 5Ks every weekend, and talking about taking the company public by the time he turned 65. We were at an investor mixer at the Rosewood in Menlo Park. I remember the exact table, number 14, near the windows. My father introduced me to Preston. This is my daughter, Claire. She just graduated top of her class, thinking about bringing her into the company. Preston was 31, Stanford MBA, 3 years as a venture capital analyst. Charming, focused. He asked about my thesis on machine learning applications in healthcare data. Actually listened to my answer, didn't interrupt or talk over me like most of the men in that room. 2 months later, we were dating. 6 months after that, my father hired Preston as VP of Business Development. He's got the vision, Dad told me over coffee one morning, and he cares about you. I can see it. I believed him. I believed everything my father told me. We got married in Napa, November 2021. Small ceremony, 40 guests. My father walked me down the aisle. He was crying. I'd never seen him cry before. You're going to be so happy, he whispered right before he handed me off to Preston. I made sure of it. I didn't know what he meant. Not then. 3 months after the wedding, my father collapsed during a board meeting. Massive stroke. He was dead before the ambulance arrived. He was 61 years old. The funeral was on a Thursday. I remember standing at the graveside, watching them lower the mahogany casket into the ground. Preston stood next to me, his hand on my back, supportive, present. 200 people came, investors, employees, competitors, friends. My father had built something that mattered. After the burial, Preston drove me back to our house in Atherton. The estate was massive, 8,200 square feet, pool, garden, gate. My father had bought it for me as a wedding present. Put it in my name. You'll always have a home, he'd said. Preston helped me inside, poured me a glass of water, kissed my forehead. I need to go back to the office, he said. Emergency board meeting. They want to discuss succession plans. Already? I'd asked. The company can't wait, Claire. Your father would understand. I nodded. I was numb. My father had been dead for 72 hours, and I couldn't process any of it. Preston left at 3:15 p.m. I sat in the living room until it got dark. At some point, I fell asleep on the couch. When I woke up at 6:30 a.m. the next morning, Preston still wasn't home. That's when things started to change. The first betrayal happened 3 weeks after the funeral. I came home from a meeting with my father's estate lawyer. There were documents to sign, accounts to settle, the usual aftermath of death. Preston was in the home office on a video call. I heard him through the door. She's not ready to step in, he was saying. Richard knew that. He told me himself, Claire's brilliant, but she's not a leader. She doesn't have the temperament for it. I stood in the hallway, frozen. The board agrees, another voice said. I recognized it. Martin Cho, one of the early investors. We'll keep her on as a figurehead shareholder. 40% non-voting. Preston takes over as CEO. We bring in Chloe Thorne to handle operations, and we move forward with the Series E funding round. What about the 51% her father left her? Preston asked. Her father left her 40%. The trust documents are very clear. I have the originals right here. My stomach dropped. I'd seen my father's will. I'd been there when he had it notarized. He left me 51% of Sterling Innovations, voting shares, full control. Preston got nothing. We'd signed a prenup at my father's insistence. Perfect, Preston said. Let's schedule the transition announcement for next week. I backed away from the door, quietly, went to my bedroom, locked the door, sat on the floor. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. I called my father's attorney, Douglas Marsh. He'd been Dad's lawyer for 20 years. Douglas, I need to see the will documents, the trust. Of course, he said. I'll have my assistant send over copies. No, I need the originals, the ones my father signed. There was a pause. Mrs. Vance, I'm not sure what you're implying, but I'm not implying anything. I just need to see them. The originals are in the secure vault. Per your husband's instructions, all estate documents are now managed through Sterling Innovations' legal team. You'll need to go through him. I hung up. I sat on that floor for 38 minutes. Then I opened my laptop and started searching for employment lawyers. The public humiliation happened 2 months later. I'd taken a job as a product manager at a small startup in Palo Alto. Nothing glamorous, but it paid $95,000, and I needed something to do. Preston had moved into the CEO office at Sterling Innovations. I barely saw him. He came home late, left early, spent weekends at the office. One Friday afternoon, I was having lunch with my team at a Vietnamese restaurant on University Avenue. 7 of us, celebrating the launch of our new feature. I was halfway through a bowl of pho when Preston walked in. He wasn't alone. Chloe Thorne was with him, along with 2 other Sterling Innovations executives I recognized. They sat 4 tables away. I kept eating, pretended not to notice. But Chloe noticed me. She walked over to our table, all smiles. Claire! Oh my God! What a coincidence! Preston, look, it's Claire! Preston glanced over. His expression was carefully neutral. Hi, I said. How are you doing? Chloe asked. She was wearing a cream silk blouse that probably cost $800. We heard you were working at… what's it called? She looked at my company laptop on the table, squinted at the logo. Data Pulse, how cute. It's going well, I said. That's so good. It must be nice to work somewhere low pressure, after everything you've been through. She placed a hand on my shoulder. We were all so worried about you after your father died. Preston said you were really struggling. My coworker next to me, Jen, a UX designer, shifted uncomfortably. I'm fine, I said. Of course you are. You're so strong. Chloe smiled wider. We should get lunch sometime. Just us girls. I can tell you all about the exciting things happening at Sterling Innovations. Preston's been doing an incredible job. The Series E funding closed last month, $340 million. Your father would be so proud. Something hardened inside me. It wasn't anger, exactly. It was colder than that. That's wonderful, I said. I'm sure the board is thrilled. They are. Preston's a visionary. He's already talking about the IPO timeline. She leaned in, lowered her voice. Between you and me, I think he's going to take this company past $15 billion valuation. Maybe even $20 billion. Good for him, I said. Chloe straightened up. Well, we should let you get back to your lunch. It was so good to see you, Claire. Take care of yourself, okay? She walked back to Preston's table. I watched her whisper something to him. They both laughed. Jen leaned over. Who was that? My husband's colleague, I said. She seems… Jen paused. Intense. I didn't respond. I finished my pho, paid my bill, went back to the office. At 4:30 p.m., I went to the bathroom and cried for 6 minutes. Then I washed my face, fixed my makeup, and finished my workday. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't fight Preston head-on. He had the lawyers, the board, the company resources. But I could investigate, quietly, carefully. I started with the public filings. Sterling Innovations quarterly reports, investor disclosures, SEC documents. Everything was available if you knew where to look. The Series E funding round closed on March 15, 2022, $340 million, led by Sequoia Capital. The money went into three main areas: product development, $140 million, marketing and expansion, $120 million, and strategic operational partnerships, $80 million. I dug into the operational partnerships line item, found contracts with 3 PR and marketing firms: Thorn Media Solutions, Apex Strategic Communications, and Velocity Brand Partners. I Googled all three. Thorn Media Solutions was registered in Delaware, founded in 2021. CEO, Marcus Thorn. A quick LinkedIn search showed Marcus Thorn was Chloe's older brother. Apex Strategic Communications, CEO, Jennifer Thorn Park, Chloe's older sister. Velocity Brand Partners, CEO, David Thorn, Chloe's father, Sterling. Innovations had paid these three companies a combined total of $68 million over 14 months. For what? I pulled up the invoices. They were in the public disclosure appendix, buried in footnote 47. Brand consultation services. Strategic market positioning. Executive communications support. I'd worked in tech long enough to know what real marketing contracts looked like. This wasn't marketing. This was embezzlement. I screenshot everything, created an encrypted folder on my personal cloud drive, labeled it Dad's Legacy. Then I kept digging. By June 2022, I'd found the shell company registry. Preston had created 4 offshore entities in the Cayman Islands. All of them listed Chloe as a beneficial owner. All of them received wire transfers from Sterling Innovations, totaling $23.7 million. I found the board meeting minutes from February 2022, the meeting where they voted to restructure my inheritance. 8 board members voted yes, 2 abstained, 0 voted no. I pulled up my father's original trust documents from my personal files, the copies he'd given me before the wedding. 51% voting shares transferred to me upon his death. The signature was my father's. The notary seal was dated October 2021, 1 month before we got married. I called Douglas Marsh again. I need to see the original trust documents in person, I said. Not copies, originals. Mrs. Vance, I've already explained. I'm not Mrs. Vance anymore. I'm Claire Sterling, and those documents belong to me. The documents are managed by Sterling Innovations Legal Department now. Who authorized that transfer? Silence. Douglas, answer me. Who gave you permission to hand over my father's estate documents to my husband? It was… Mr. Vance is the CEO. It's standard practice to consolidate corporate governance materials. My father's will isn't a corporate governance material, it's a personal estate document. I'm sorry, Ms. Sterling. My hands are tied. I hung up. I sat at my kitchen table for an hour, staring at the screenshots on my laptop. $68 million in fraudulent contracts. $23.7 million in offshore transfers. Forged trust documents. A corrupted board. Preston was stealing my father's company. Systematically. Methodically. And he was using Chloe's family to do it. I needed proof that would hold up in court. But more importantly, I needed to understand the full scope of the operation. How deep did this go? Who else was involved? There was only one way to find out. I had to go inside. 3 weeks later, I applied for an administrative assistant position at Sterling Innovations. I used my maiden name, Sterling. Changed my hair from long blonde to short brunette with a box dye kit from CVS. Wore drugstore makeup instead of my usual Chanel. Got fake glasses from an online retailer. On the application, I listed my experience as executive support and left my previous employment section vague. Various contract positions, 2019 to 2023. The HR manager called me in for an interview. Her name was Patricia Chen. She looked at my resume, looked at me. Sterling, she said. Any relation to Richard Sterling? Distant, I said. Third cousin, maybe? My dad mentioned it once, but we never met him. She nodded. Well, we're always happy to hire family, even distant family. I got the job. $42,000 salary, standard benefits, cubicle on the 11th floor. I started on a Monday in September. Preston didn't recognize me. Neither did Chloe. I spent 3 months as a low-level admin. Answered phones, scheduled meetings, organized files. I was invisible. That was the point. But I was also watching, recording, collecting. I installed a keylogger on the shared computer in the admin bullpen, got access to internal emails, calendar invites, confidential memos. I befriended the IT director, Marcus Wu. He'd been at the company since my father founded it. Loyal, quiet. He remembered me from company holiday parties when I was in high school. Claire Sterling, he said when I ran into him in the server room one day. I thought that was you. Don't tell anyone, I said. Please. He studied my face. What are you doing here? Getting back what's mine. He nodded slowly. What do you need? Admin access, master token, everything my father had. That's a felony. So is embezzlement. Marcus thought about it. Then he pulled out a USB drive from his desk drawer. Your father gave this to me 3 weeks before he died. Told me to keep it safe. Told me if anything happened to him, I should give it to you when you were ready. He handed it over. He said you'd know when. I took the USB drive. My hands were shaking. What's on it? I asked. I don't know. He encrypted it, password protected, but he said you'd figure it out. That night, I went home, not to the Atherton estate, which Preston had moved into full-time, but to a one-bedroom apartment in Mountain View I'd been renting since the divorce papers were filed. I plugged in the USB drive. It asked for a password. I tried my birthday. Wrong. Preston's birthday. Wrong. My parents' anniversary. Wrong. Then I remembered something my father used to say when I was little. Every night before bed, he'd kiss my forehead and whisper, "You're my little architect, Claire. You build beautiful things." I typed, "Little architect." The drive unlocked. Inside, 847 files, video recordings, audio transcripts, bank statements, wire transfer receipts, emails between Preston and Martin Cho dating back to November 2020, a full year before my father died. I clicked on the first video file. It was my father, sitting in his home office. The timestamp said October 12th, 2021, 11:34 p.m. Claire, he said, looking directly at the camera, if you're watching this, then I'm gone, and Preston is already doing exactly what I knew he would do. I watched the entire video. Then I watched it again. Then I sat on my apartment floor and cried until my throat was raw. My father had known. He'd known for over a year that Preston was planning to betray me. He'd collected evidence, built a case, left me everything I needed to take back control, but he'd also left me something else, a choice. The last video file was dated November 3rd, 2021, 5 days before my wedding. You don't have to marry him, my father said. I have enough evidence to destroy his career right now. Just say the word and I'll do it. He paused, looked tired. But I know you love him, and I know you believe people can change, so I'm giving you this choice. If he proves me wrong, if he loves you the way you deserve, then delete these files and forget I ever doubted him. But if I'm right, if he does what I think he's going to do, then you'll have everything you need to fight back, on your terms, When you're ready. He smiled. It was sad. You're my little architect, Claire. You build beautiful things. Don't let anyone take that away from you. The video ended. I sat there for a long time. Then I opened the folder labeled Contingency Plan, Phase 3. Inside was a step-by-step strategy for exposing Preston's fraud, reclaiming my shares, and removing him from the company. My father had thought of everything: legal contacts, forensic accountants, loyal board members who'd been waiting for my signal. There was also a letter, handwritten, sealed in a scanned PDF. I opened it. Dear Claire, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and Preston is already showing his true colors. I'm sorry I couldn't stop this while I was alive. I tried to warn you, but you were so happy. I couldn't bear to ruin that. Do you remember when you were 8 years old and you built that treehouse in the backyard? You spent 3 weeks on it, measured every board, checked every nail. When it was done, you were so proud. Then that storm came through and knocked it down in one night. You cried for hours. I told you, little architect, sometimes things fall apart, but you're the kind of person who builds them back up stronger. The original trust document, the real one, with 51% voting shares, is with my attorney, Howard Brennan. His office is at 2847 Sand Hill Road, Suite 600, Menlo Park. He doesn't know what's in the sealed envelope. He's been instructed to only open it if you personally request it using the phrase, "I'm ready to build." Inside this USB drive, you'll find hidden camera footage of Preston and Martin Cho discussing the trust forgery, December 2021. Bank wire records showing embezzlement through Thorne family shell companies, $91. 7 million total as of my last update. Audio recordings of Preston admitting he married you to gain access to the company. Master admin access token for Sterling Innovations' entire network. Contact information for 3 board members who are still loyal to our family. Forensic audit reports I commissioned secretly in September 2021. Don't show this to anyone yet. Wait for the right moment. Preston is smart, but he's arrogant. He'll make a mistake, and when he does, you'll be ready. You are not a figurehead shareholder. You are not a low-level anything. You are Claire Sterling, and you are the rightful CEO of Sterling Innovations. Always have been. All my love, Dad. P.S. The master admin token password is your mother's maiden name, plus the year we founded the company. You'll know what to do with it. I read the letter 4 times, then I got to work. Over the next 2 months, I quietly gathered additional evidence, used the master admin token to access Preston's email archives, found messages between him and Chloe dating back to January 2021, months before my father died. Once the old man is gone, we'll have clear path, Preston had written. She's too soft to fight back. Chloe's response, what if she doesn't sign the divorce papers? Preston, she will. She always does what I tell her to. I documented everything, cross-referenced the embezzlement patterns, built a timeline. The plan was elegant in its cruelty. Marry the daughter, wait for the father to die, forge the trust documents, transfer company assets to shell corporations, force a divorce before the wife figures it out, walk away with billions. And it had almost worked. By December 2023, I had 1,847 pages of evidence. I'd contacted Howard Brennan, my father's real attorney, verified the original trust documents, confirmed my 51% ownership. I'd also reconnected with 3 old guard board members, Sarah Chen, David Park, and Malcolm Wright. All of them had worked with my father since Sterling Innovations was founded. All of them had been sidelined by Preston's new regime. We've been waiting for you, Sarah told me during a secret meeting at a coffee shop in Los Gatos. Your father told us this might happen. He made us promise to wait for your signal. What signal? I asked. He said you'd show up when you were ready to build. I almost laughed. Of course he did. We scheduled the confrontation for January 16th, 2024. Tuesday, lunch hour. The company cafeteria was on the ground floor of Sterling Innovations headquarters, a massive open space with floor-to-ceiling windows, long communal tables, and a full-service kitchen. During lunch, it held approximately 400 employees across 2 seating shifts. I arrived at 12:35 p.m., got a salad from the buffet line, sat at a table near the windows. At 12:41 p.m., Preston walked in with Chloe. They were laughing about something. He had his arm around her waist. They got food, sat 3 tables away from me. I waited. At 12:47 p.m., I walked to the beverage station and picked up a thermos that someone had left on the counter, navy blue, engraved with PV. I poured myself water from it. Chloe saw me immediately. She stood up, walked over. "How dare you drink from my husband's thermos?" And then she slapped me. The cafeteria went silent. 400 people, frozen. I touched my cheek, looked at her calmly. "Your husband?" I said. "Yes, my husband." She held up her left hand, showing off the ring. "We got married last month. He finally divorced that pathetic excuse for a wife." "Interesting," I said. "Because last I checked, our divorce isn't finalized, which would make your marriage, what's the word, bigamy?" Preston stood up. His face had gone white. "Claire, don't what? Tell the truth?" I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen. "I have something everyone should hear." From the speakers mounted throughout the cafeteria, a recording played. Preston's voice. "Once the old man is gone, we'll have clear path. She's too soft to fight back." Chloe's voice. "What if she doesn't sign the divorce papers?" Preston. "She will. She always does what I tell her to." The cafeteria erupted in whispers. I stopped the recording. "That's from January 2021, 3 months before my father died. 10 months before you married me, Preston." "This is a private matter," Preston started. "Actually, it's a federal matter." I looked at the crowd, at the employees staring at us. "My name is Claire Sterling. Richard Sterling was my father. He founded this company in 1997. He left me 51% voting shares when he died. But some of you might remember the announcement that I only inherited 40%, non-voting." I pulled out a folder from my bag, held up a document. "This is the original trust, notarized in October 2021, 51% voting shares. My father's signature, witnessed by Howard Brennan and Sarah Chen." Sarah Chen stood up from a table near the back. "I can confirm that. Richard showed me the trust 3 weeks before he died. He told me to protect it." Preston's hands were shaking. "This is absurd. You're making this up." "Am I?" I pulled out another document. "These are wire transfer records showing $91.7 million transferred from Sterling Innovations to 3 shell companies owned by the Thorne family. Thorne Media Solutions, Apex Strategic Communications, Velocity Brand Partners. All of them owned by Chloe's father, brother, and sister." Chloe's face went red. "Those are legitimate business contracts. For what? Can you name a single campaign your company's produced? A single deliverable? Because I've gone through every invoice. $68 million for strategic consultation. No reports, no presentations, no work product." I turned to the crowd. "Sterling Innovations made $68 million in payments to fake companies. That's called embezzlement." The murmuring got louder. Preston stepped toward me. "You can't prove any of this." "I can prove all of it." I held up a USB drive. "This USB contains hidden camera footage of you and Martin Cho discussing the trust forgery. It contains audio recordings of you admitting you married me to gain access to the company. It contains bank statements, wire transfer receipts, email threads, and forensic audit reports covering the period from November 2020 to present day." I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd loved, the man I'd married. "My father knew you were going to do this," I said quietly. He spent the last year of his life building a case against you. He gave me everything I needed to take back what's mine. Preston's jaw clenched. You have nothing. This is just a desperate attempt. I have master admin access to every system in this building, I said. Your emails, your calendar, your financial records, all of it. His eyes widened. That's illegal? So is forging trust documents. So is embezzling corporate funds. So is fraud. I turned back to the crowd, to the 400 employees who were watching this unfold. I'm not here for revenge, I said. I'm here for truth. My father built this company from nothing. He put his entire life into making Sterling Innovations a place where brilliant people could do meaningful work. And then he died, and his legacy was stolen by people who never cared about anything except money. I looked at Preston and Chloe. You thought I was too soft to fight back. You thought I'd sign the papers, take the settlement, disappear. But my father taught me something important. You don't need anyone's permission to have value. You just need to have the courage to build something worth protecting. I picked up my bag. The board meeting is scheduled for 3 p.m. today. Emergency session. Sarah Chen has already sent the formal notice. We'll be voting on 2 motions. Removing Preston Vance as CEO for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty, and installing me as acting CEO pending a full forensic audit. Preston grabbed my arm. You can't do this. I pulled away. I'm a 51% voting shareholder. I can do exactly this. I walked toward the exit. The crowd parted. Behind me, I heard Chloe's voice, shrill and desperate. This is insane! She's lying! Preston, tell them she's lying! Preston didn't respond. He was staring at the floor. I pushed through the cafeteria doors and kept walking. The board meeting lasted 4 hours and 17 minutes. I presented the evidence. The original trust documents, the wire transfer records, the audio recordings, the forensic audit reports. Preston's lawyer tried to argue that the evidence was inadmissible, that I'd obtained it illegally, that this was a personal vendetta. But the numbers didn't lie. $91.7 million in fraudulent transfers, 8 shell companies, 47 invoices for non-existent services. The vote was unanimous. 10-0 to remove Preston as CEO. 10-0 to install me as acting CEO. Preston left the building at 7:22 p.m. Security escorted him to his car. Chloe was already gone. She'd been terminated at 4:15 p.m. for violating the company's conflict of interest policy. I watched from my new office, the corner suite that used to be my father's, then became Preston's, and now was mine again. Sarah Chen knocked on the door. How are you holding up? I don't know yet, I said honestly. Your father would be proud. I nodded. I couldn't speak. She left me alone. I sat in that office until midnight, went through my father's old files, found photographs from the early days, him and my mother in a garage, building the first Sterling Innovations prototype, me as a kid, visiting the office, drawing on whiteboards while he ran meetings. There was a photo on his desk that I hadn't seen before, me at 8 years old standing in front of that treehouse I'd built, grinning, holding a hammer, on the back in my father's handwriting. My little architect. She builds beautiful things. I cried for the first time since the cafeteria confrontation. Not sad tears, not angry tears, just tears. 6 months later, Sterling Innovations completed its IPO at a $14.8 billion valuation. I'm still CEO. We've hired 240 new employees, launched 3 new products, opened offices in Austin and Berlin. The Atherton estate is mine again. Preston had to transfer the deed back as part of the settlement. I turned his home office into a library. I have a cat now. Her name is Architect. Preston and Chloe are facing federal fraud charges. The trial is set for next spring. I'll probably have to testify. I'm ready. But here's what I want you to know, if you're watching this. Silence isn't peace. Silence is the price you pay for someone else's comfort. For 3 years, I stayed quiet because I loved Preston. Because I wanted to believe the best in him, because I thought love meant giving people endless chances. But love doesn't steal from you. Love doesn't forge documents. Love doesn't slap you in a cafeteria and call it justified. My father knew that. He spent his last year building me a safety net. Not because he didn't trust me, but because he knew I'd need proof before I could believe the truth. Sometimes the people who love you most can see things you can't. Sometimes preparation is the greatest gift. I'm sitting in my office right now. It's 11:47 p.m. The city lights are on. There's fresh coffee brewing, Ethiopian roast, the same kind my father used to drink. And I'm looking at that photo of 8-year-old me with her treehouse hammer. She didn't know that storms were coming. She didn't know things would fall apart. But she knew how to build. And when everything fell down, she learned how to build it back stronger. If you've ever had to walk away from someone you loved to protect what mattered most, type "I walked away" in the comments. Or if you chose to stay and fight for what was rightfully yours, type "I stayed and fought." Both are brave. Both are valid. If this story meant something to you, check the description for more stories just like this one. Thank you for being here.